Hey everybody, I'm David Corsaro, and it's time to be awesome. I'm extremely honored because we have a true legend of magic here with us today. Mr. Paul Gertner has come on my show. Paul, thank you very much. We just got done. We're up here at the 4F convention in Batavia, New York, where Paul just did a new piece that was just absolutely incredible. And I'm just sort of teasing it here because I'm sure he's going to be doing it a lot more, hopefully, soon. But what I really wanted to get at was how creative and how original the piece was. Now, if you've seen Paul lecture recently, the title of his lecture is Original Instructions Not Included. All about going into your drawer, going into the magic that you already have, and creating new methods, new presentations, new ideas around them.
Right.
Can you talk just for a minute about sort of your initial approach of how somebody out there can take that step to opening their drawer and being creative?
Yeah, well, what I was trying to do with the lecture was basically, I saw the WOW gimmick. That was sort of the inspiration for the lecture. And part of it, the WOW gimmick came with initially something telling you to do a double lift, but if you couldn't do a double lift, there was sticky tape included.
Okay.
And I thought about it, and I thought, well, sometimes they're not giving us the ultimate instructions. They're dumbing them down a little bit because they want to sell as many as possible, which I'd do the same thing if it were my gimmick too. But what it made me think was that it's possible to take and basically add your own touches to it, and that you should learn how to do the effect, and then kind of put their instructions away, and don't assume that they're giving you the ultimate presentation, which most magicians do. They kind of do it as it comes out of the box.
Right.
So what I was trying to do was show people, different variations, and I came up with a couple of nice presentations with a WOW gimmick that the people are using now. In fact, they put it on WOW too.
On WOW too.
Yeah.
So, but in terms of what steps can somebody take to, all right, I've learned the method. Do you have any tips or suggestions on how to sort of open up your mind, how to think outside that box, how to break away from what you've seen the guy on the DVD do?
Yeah. I mean, I can take acting lessons. I think take yoga. I think take what it comes down to is, and Bob Fitch talks about this all the time. And it's about getting out of your head and into your senses, and kind of stripping away. We think too much. Magicians too very, and if you can kind of get out of your head, it's hard to say how to do, but basically things, getting in touch with your body, your senses, your breathing, and so on like that. You'd be surprised how that gives you the freedom, to just try different presentations. And a perfect example is, I now do a routine that I've been doing for 35 years. It's called a trick with a stick initially, but now I do it at the end of my corporate shows as a Dr. Seuss character. Now I know that sounds crazy and out of, different. And I've written a whole script around it and so on like that. And now the stick isn't just doesn't change colors at the end. I bend it as a piece of steel, and it changes into a rainbow. And there's a whole piece written to it. It's presented as a little present that I used, as a little routine that I used to do for my kids when they were little, as a bedtime story. Now, that came about though at one of the Bob Fitch workshops because it was 11:30 at night. We'd been there for 18 hours that day already, and I was on the hot seat, so to speak, doing my thing, and they were all kind of looking at it, analyzing, and so on. And he forced me to do it again, and finally he says, "Do it like Dr. Seuss." And I was so out of my head and into my senses at that moment that I said, "Fine, I'll do it again." And I did. It was like a trick with a stick is a nice thing to see. And I did it off the charts, completely off the charts. And I was done, and they all went, "That's it. That's it." And my response to Bob was, and I was very honest, I said, "You don't seriously expect me to perform it like that?" I thought they were crazy. And they said, "Look at the video." Because we taped everything.
Right.
And they said, "Watch the video." And I watched the video. And it was pretty good. And I realized then, at that moment, that in the creative process, or in performing process, there are two different shows going on. There's the show in your head, that we think they're seeing, and there's the show that they're really seeing.
Okay.
Two totally different shows. Totally different shows. And I thought I was completely crazy off the charts and so on doing a Dr. Seuss character.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't. What it was I was so out of my head, I wasn't thinking anymore. I was in touch with my senses. I got in touch with Paul or the kid or whatever was there, that for those 3 minutes or those minute and a half, whatever, how long the routine was, it was on a whole other level.
Mm-hmm.
It was real. Okay, I was Dr. Seuss. Okay, and when I looked at it now and I realized so that's what I'm shooting for. So now that's what I am at the end of corporate shows and so on like that. So it's a weird sounding thing, but basically we think too much. It's a matter of kind of freeing up your body, your mind and so on like that to try new things. And
are you? Let me ask you this: are you this crazy Dr. Seuss character, or have you taken that and sort of thought through how Paul Gertner the character and that combined?
I'm sure that happens.
Okay.
That happens. Okay, but if I do too much of that, then I hit it here. I've got to be willing
Okay.
to go there. I've got to be willing to commit if I'm going to do the poem as I did it for my little kids, so to speak, as the story says.
Okay.
I've got to be willing to do it as a kid. For many years, I was doing the routine with the poem, and it was on sort of a corporate level. Okay. A trick with a stick is a nice thing to see. Unfortunately, I don't have one with me, but a stick for the trick can be found anyway. But
still a little tight.
You got it right. Yeah, a little tight, but basically by taking a routine like that and kind of freeing it up, the audiences love it. They come back at the end of the show, and that's their favorite little piece. And I tell them, just for a moment, it's just for a moment. Please become children again. It's story time. With apologies to Dr. Seuss, a trick with a stick. And when I come up, the eyeglasses are here, and I'm Dr. Seuss.
You've changed.
And I've changed. Yeah, and it gives me permission to change. And another little trick to it is I can't see the audience. I'm looking over here. I can't see squat. Okay, and which makes it a lot easier to act that way because I'm not watching their faces going, which I'm sure they're going like that initially. Right. They're where's this going? This isn't, this guy's, what's happening here? And so, but it's a great moment.
I once had somebody, I was working on an effect and I was sort of stuck with it, and somebody said to me, well, how would Penn and Teller do it? And I immediately started just thinking creatively, because I consider them to be two of the most creative guys in magic, and I just started thinking creatively. And then somebody, well, how would Tom Maurice do it? How would Williamson do it? And it really was incredible how my mind, I locked out of, I wasn't thinking like David Corsaro anymore. I began thinking like those guys, which at the very least just opened up new avenues.
Right.
Then, again, this is the way I sort of took it at the time, was then it became, all right, now that I've opened up these avenues, and I have these new ideas, now how would, now make it how David, so that somebody else hopefully someday goes, how would David Corsaro perform the effect?
Sure.
How, I mean, you've been in magic a long time. Is this something that's just sort of, I mean, the Fitch workshops I know you took fairly recently, is this something you wish you had 20 years ago? Did you wish you had this sort of openness?
Sure.
Is it easier or harder now with the incredible amount of material that's out there? I mean, magic now is booming more than ever in terms of DVDs, books, lecture notes, videos. I mean, it's everywhere. Do you think that makes it harder to be creative or easier?
I think it might make it even more difficult for, say, the young folks that are getting into magic to understand. In other words, there's a tendency to want to learn every
single thing
and so on like that. Whereas, there's so much material out there. You don't have to do that. I believe in having a very solid foundation and learning, an awful lot in the basics of sleight of hand and so on like that. But I think it's possible to kind of hone in on, there's so many tricks out there. You don't need to choose all the tricks. What you really need is more of the techniques and
the foundation.
So I wish, gosh, I started first Fitch workshop I did was 2000, so I've done maybe 9 or 10 of them over the last 11 years, and I would be a much better performer if I had something like that. If I had understood that concept when I was 25, my God, you know,
Think of what it could be like.
yeah.
It's interesting you bring up the Fitch workshop because I know you've taken it. I know Bob Sheets has taken it. I know there's been some really, really great people that I would say are a great performer before they take this intense acting and theater workshop. You know, people that I would never say, well, why would you need to go to something like that? But you're right. It's bringing, it's busting through a wall that you've created for yourself, no matter how.
Yeah, it's a whole nother level.
It's a whole other.
It really is. I mean, you know, and unfortunately, the difficult part is when they sometimes do smaller sessions, and the ideal is when they do the 7-day session, and when it was up in Canada by a lake, and you know, we did yoga every morning, and so it was great. Because it would really literally take about 3 days before you were literally able to kind of, okay, fine, you know, I give up. Go. Let's just. I'll do what you say.
Right.
You know, and
break you down first.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta break you down. Gotta break you down.
And you know what? It's so hard today too because there's so much fast-paced stuff happening in magic, and you know, people invent a move and get it out on a DVD the next day, and they're trying all these different. And you're right. Sometimes you need to stop, break down everything, get out of your head, get out of your senses, let something breathe. And I think that what you're saying is true. You might need to just sort of hone in on a foundation. Let me get the sleights down. Let me get the moves down. Let me build my foundation. These are my tricks. Now let me work on them.
Yeah.
Develop a little bit.
Right. But yeah, I mean, anyone taking acting classes or any kind of classes like that, or improv classes, would be great for magicians. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take up too much Paul's time. He's got an early flight tomorrow, but I think the key takeaways here really are, if you want to try to be a little bit more creative, take the stuff you already have. No reason to go out and buy a ton of new material. And if you do want to buy new material, if you got that money to burn, go for maybe some more of the classics. Go for some more of the foundation stuff, you know, some of the Royal Road to Card Magic type stuff, the early stuff. Paul Gertner's book is a staple. It was one of my first big magic books in my library. I'll never forget it. It's sitting right there. But those are the things that teach you, the foundation. They teach you routining. I mean, you tipped your entire act at the end of that, and that was a complete lesson in how to go from one effect to another effect in a streamlined performance way, which not many DVDs and books do nowadays. So if you want to get that or some of the other stuff that Paul's got out there, paulgertnermagic.com. We'll link to that right here so you can go check that out, paulgertnermagic.com. But take a minute, you want to be more creative, pull out some of that old stuff, get out of your head a little bit, and start playing around. How would Tom Maurice do something like this? How would Dr. Seuss perform this?
Yeah, and you're not copying them.
Not copying them.
You're just trying to basically get out of your head and sort of understand. We did that at one of the workshops, and had one of the performers, as we said, I want you to do it like Tamariz would. And all of a sudden, this guy who was very kind of was here and did. And when he felt so silly doing it, he said, oh my God, I'd never done anything.
Just like you felt silly doing the Seuss thing.
Sure. But when he watched the videotape, he would see that he wasn't as silly as he thought. He was just more of him.
It's interesting.
It's more of himself. So it's about putting more of you into what you do, and sometimes the way to do that is to play a different character.
Yeah.
And Tamariz is a character.
Oh,
Williamson's a character.
They are.
They are.
They absolutely characters. And you know what? Whether you're a wannabe professional, you're a part-time pro, or you're a hobbyist, if you love magic and you want to become the best magician you can be, the techniques that Paul's talking about really are the things that are going to take your performance up a level and make you a better magician, which I think is what we're all striving to do.
I'm still doing it.
Still doing it after all these years.
That's right.
And if Paul's still doing it, we can all do it. So Paul, thank you so much. I so appreciate you coming on here. I'm David Corsaro. Check out paulgertnermagic.com. That's Paul Gertner. Now go be awesome. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you so much. Welcome to the trailer for The Magic of David Corsaro. Now, as I see it, all trailers for magic DVDs nowadays have to have 3 things in them. Your card, the King of Hearts.
Get the out of here,
Is that your card?
Wow. You're hot.
But not this DVD. The trailer for this DVD is going to be a little different. I'm going to let the material speak for itself. Check it out.
Now remember the days when a family would stay at the lake. Miss Judy had a beauty that no man could ever mistake. Well, I made up my mind, I don't care what I gotta go through. I said I'm gonna...
You know, every time I see David perform, I always think the same thing. That is a nice suit he's wearing.